And one of the big stories of the afternoon, U.S. Army Private Travis King, who's from Racine, is heading home from North Korea 2 months after running across the border from South Korea. Joining us this afternoon is David Fields. He is back with us. He's a professor at UW-Madison and an expert on North Korea. This news breaking early this morning. I want to get your initial reaction when you heard Travis King was being expelled from North Korea.
I was delighted. I was surprised that it happened so quickly. North Korean statements in August indicated that this was a possibility that they would expel him and turn him over in a third country, but that was far from guaranteed by their statement. And even with the hope I drew from that statement, I thought it could still well be months, if not years, before King was released. So. Yeah, I think this is really the ideal ending for the situation, and I'm very glad that this ordeal is coming to an end for him and his family.
This turnaround relatively quickly. There were a number of countries involved in this move. Our political director, Matt Smith, spoke to a Pentagon official today. Let's listen to that exchange.
From a larger perspective, Sweden played a major role in this. The State Department played a role in this. How big of an effort was this?
Well, this was a huge interagency, intergovernmental effort to bring Private King home. Sweden served as the interlocutor to really work with and communicate with the DPRK on Private King, and we were in constant communication with Sweden during that time.
The Pentagon, or excuse me, the State Department spoke to this, but from the Pentagon's perspective, nothing was offered to North Korea for this?
No, nothing was offered.
All right, so this was clearly not a prisoner exchange. Are you surprised the U.S. did not make any offer or concede anything to get Travis King in return?
No, not entirely, because really the United States had no leverage to get him back. It was all going to be up to the North Koreans what they wanted to do with him. And so I think ultimately they decided his own fate. I think, though, that we should give credit to the Biden administration for not being more aggressive, for not screwing the situation up. I know when the North Koreans first acknowledged that they were holding Private King, there were those who were demanding that the Biden administration take very vigorous and aggressive action against North Korea with threats about what would happen if they didn't turn Private King over. I know myself, and I think almost everyone else knowledgeable about North Korea, did not think that that was a good idea, that that would probably be less likely to bring an early end to his period in North Korean custody. And so we don't know yet exactly what happened behind closed doors. But I think it truly appears that the Biden administration took a quiet approach, worked with the Swedish embassy, who represents U.S. interests in Pyongyang, and ultimately was able to secure his release at the earliest possible moment.
It seems like rare diplomatic success involving the U.S. and North Korea. Does this move tell you anything about relations between the two countries?
Well, we don't have enough information yet. We don't know yet whether the Americans were just informed that the North Koreans were going to be dropping him off in Dandong across the border in China and they should come get him, or if this was the result of serious negotiations and a back and forth between the two sides. However, I think we can all be happy at the outcome. U.S.-North Korean relations are so bad that I think whenever there's any sort of cause for victory or celebration, we should grab onto that. So I think we should all be happy that Private King is home. But sadly, I don't think this augurs any sort of hope for any sort of broader breakthrough in the relationship. But who knows? It could be a starting point, but I'm not very optimistic about that at this point.
And there had been one final question here. There had been some concern North Korea would use Travis King for propaganda. North Korea claiming today that King confessed that he illegally intruded North Korea and harbored certain feelings about the U.S. or against the U.S. Army regarding what he says, what they say he says was inhumane treatment. We have not heard from Travis King directly. Do you buy this statement from North Korea?
You know, it's impossible to verify right now. I assume at some point maybe Private King will make his own statement, except for the part about him entering North Korea legally. That was undeniably the fact. You need a visa to enter North Korea like you do most countries. He did not have it, and so he entered illegally. They chose to treat him as a criminal rather than as a defector, and so they have expelled him for illegally entering the country, and that is really the best outcome to the situation. Had they treated him as a political defector, it is likely that they could have tried to hold on to him for years and years. We don't know why they decided not to do that. It could be that they're just not interested in any sort of negotiations with the United States right now, so they don't need any sort of leverage or any sort of bargaining trips. There's just so much we don't know, except that we can all be happy that he is on his way home.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. David Fields, a professor at UW-Madison, thank you so much for your insight here this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.